The house was too quiet. Not the kind of quiet that comes from peace or solitude, but the uneasy silence that makes every creak feel like a whisper from something watching. My sneakers made soft thuds against the polished hardwood as I stepped into the foyer, the scent of lavender cleaner still clinging to the air. I dropped my duffel bag by the hall bench and exhaled, watching the late afternoon light stretch in golden slats across the floor. It was a beautiful house, too beautiful for my friend Caleb's chaotic energy. Clean lines, minimalist decor, a few art pieces that screamed expensive but restrained. I remember teasing him about it once, asking if his dad had a secret second life as an interior designer. I was house-sitting for the week while they were supposedly all gone on a family trip to Italy. Caleb begged me to do it, something about their dog needing a familiar face, even though the dog barely acknowledged my existence. He didn't tell me much, just that the house had a built-in security system, food in the fridge, and that his dad would definitely not be coming back early. That last part stuck with me, even as I tried to brush it off. I wandered into the kitchen, flipping on the pendant light above the marble island. It buzzed faintly before glowing a pale amber. I noticed a half-empty glass on the counter, wine by the color. I paused. That wasn't mine. Neither was the folded navy blazer on the back of the dining chair. I swallowed. Maybe they had a guest before they left? Maybe Caleb forgot to mention something? But Caleb never forgets things like that. He's obsessive. He made me download 2 separate apps just to monitor the house remotely. So why would he leave something out? The dog, Oscar, padded into the kitchen, his nails clicking softly on the floor. He looked at me, then at the hallway, ears up. Alert. "Hey, buddy," I murmured, reaching down to scratch behind his ear. He didn't lean in like usual. Instead, he turned and trotted to the hallway, pausing to glance back at me, as if expecting me to follow. I hesitated. That's when I heard it, a door clicking shut somewhere upstairs. I froze. I was supposed to be alone. My pulse kicked up a notch as I slowly stepped toward the hallway, calling out, "Hello?" Silence. Just the gentle hum of the fridge behind me. I told myself it was the house settling. Maybe the AC vent shut on its own. But I knew the sound of a door being deliberately closed. Soft, but intentional. I should have left then. Should have called Caleb, made up some excuse about an emergency, and gotten the hell out. But I didn't. I went upstairs. The hallway was dimmer than the rest of the house, the fading daylight casting shadows across the framed family portraits. One of them stopped me, Caleb, a few years younger, between his parents. His mom looked effortlessly poised. His dad stood tall, hand resting on Caleb's shoulder, smiling in that way men do when they're trying not to. That was the first time I realized I didn't know much about Caleb's dad at all. Just that he worked in finance, traveled a lot, and didn't speak much. Caleb never talked about him. If anything, he changed the subject. I took another step. Then I heard it, the shower running. Someone was home. And the only one it could be was his dad. Why hadn't Caleb told me? Why would his dad be here, alone, unannounced? And more importantly, why did a part of me feel drawn to the sound of that running water? Was it fear? Curiosity? Or something I didn't want to admit? I didn't go to the bathroom door. Not right away. Instead, I backed into the guest room, Caleb's room, heart pounding against my ribs like it was trying to break free. I shut the door quietly behind me, leaning against it, palms sweating. Okay. Think. If his dad was back, why hadn't anyone told me? Why sneak in like that? No car in the driveway. No bags near the door. Just the wine glass and the folded blazer, like ghosts of someone who lived here but shouldn't have been back yet. Oscar had followed me again, pacing. I sat on the edge of the bed and ran a hand through my hair. I texted Caleb. "Hey. Is your dad back?" 3 dots. Then they disappeared. Then nothing. I stared at the screen like it might explain itself. No reply. Just silence. I stood up, walked over to the window, and pulled the curtain back an inch. The sun was lower now, bleeding orange across the horizon. The neighborhood was calm, almost eerily so. One woman walked her golden retriever down the street, earbuds in. Nothing strange out there. But inside? The shower had stopped. I held my breath. Then, footsteps. Deliberate. Heavy. Just outside Caleb's room. I instinctively stepped back from the door. I couldn't see him, but I felt him. That quiet masculine energy that fills a space like heat from a radiator, slow, steady, overwhelming. And then a knock. 2 soft taps. I didn't speak. A beat passed. Then his voice, low, firm, and unmistakably amused. "You must be Evan." I opened the door a crack. There he was, Mr. Cole. Caleb's dad. Still damp from the shower, a towel around his waist, dark hair slicked back. He leaned against the doorframe like he had all the time in the world, a hand resting casually on the molding. "I didn't mean to scare you," he said. "Didn't know Caleb hadn't told you I'd be back early." "You, yeah?" "No, he didn't mention anything," I stammered. He smiled a little. "Typical. You here alone?" I nodded. "Good," he said, then looked past me into the room. "Looks like you've made yourself comfortable." There was something in the way he said it, not accusing, but probing. Like he was measuring me. "I was just, hanging out. Watching the dog." "Right," he said, and pushed off the doorframe. "Well, don't let me interrupt." He walked past, barefoot on the hardwood, leaving the scent of cedar and soap trailing behind him. I closed the door slowly. And sat down. Hard. What the hell was that? Something about him felt off. Not aggressive. Not threatening. But there was a flicker in his eyes, like he knew something. Like he was playing a game I didn't understand yet. I stayed in the room for almost an hour, pretending to scroll through my phone, mind racing. What was I supposed to do? Leave? Caleb still hadn't texted back. I didn't want to seem dramatic, but something didn't sit right. Eventually I went downstairs. The light outside had faded into a dusky blue. Inside, Mr. Cole was in the kitchen, shirtless now, wearing gray sweats and pouring himself another glass of wine. He looked up. "You drink?" I hesitated. "Sometimes." He raised an eyebrow and held out the bottle. "One won't kill you." I stepped forward slowly, like I was walking into a scene I wasn't sure I belonged in. He poured, handed me the glass. Our fingers brushed for a second, accidental, but not quite. "Thanks," I said. He took a sip of his, then turned to lean against the counter, arms folded. His biceps flexed just slightly. "So," he said, "how long have you and Caleb known each other?" "Since college started," I replied, grateful for a safe question. "Roommates. We kind of clicked, I guess." He nodded. "He's never mentioned you before." I didn't know what to say to that. Was it a subtle dig? A warning? He watched me over the rim of his glass. "You too close?" I shrugged. "I guess. I mean, yeah. We hang out a lot." "You guess?" I paused. "It's complicated." He smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Isn't it always?" Then he turned and walked toward the living room, glass in hand. I followed. He sank into the couch, spreading his arms along the back of it. A casual sprawl that said I own this space. The TV played some muted crime drama in the background, but he wasn't watching it. "You're not what I expected," he said suddenly. I sat on the armchair, unsure how to take that. "How so?" "Thought you'd be more. I don't know. Like Caleb." I tilted my head. "And what's Caleb like?" He smirked. "Polished. Always performing. Trying to impress. And I'm not." He met my gaze, holding it. "You're honest. Nervous. But honest." It was such a strange compliment that I didn't know how to respond. He took another sip of wine. His jaw tightened slightly as he swallowed. The air felt thick. "You said Caleb never mentioned me," I said quietly. Why do you think that is? Mr. Cole leaned forward, elbows on his knees, voice lower. Because he only shares what he can control. I think you're a part of him he hasn't figured out how to explain yet. I blinked. What's that supposed to mean? But he didn't answer. Just stood up, glass empty. Good night, Evan. And he walked out. I sat there, heart racing. Not just because of what he said, but how he said it. Like he saw something in me that I hadn't even admitted to myself. And suddenly, I remembered something. One night, months ago, when Caleb was drunk and oversharing, he said something weird. Something I brushed off at the time. He said, "If you ever meet my dad, don't let him charm you. He's got this thing." I thought he meant it as a joke. But now I wasn't so sure. I barely slept that night. Every sound felt amplified. The hum of the refrigerator, the subtle creak of wood settling in the walls, the occasional rattle of the AC vents kicking on. At some point, Oscar jumped onto the bed and curled up against my legs, as if he knew something was off too. But it was the silence that unnerved me most. The silence from Caleb. The silence from the hallway, where just beyond the thin walls, Mr. Cole had disappeared into the guest room, his room, and shut the door without a sound. I couldn't stop thinking about what he said. I think you're a part of him he hasn't figured out how to explain yet. What did that mean? Was it about Caleb? Was it about me? Was it about him? By morning, I was a mess, tired, jittery, unsure whether to act normal or get the hell out of the house. I made coffee and sat at the kitchen island, trying not to overanalyze everything. But I kept replaying the night before, his tone, the way he looked at me, like he saw something I hadn't even let myself feel yet. When he came downstairs, everything got worse. He was dressed differently this time, jeans and a plain black tee, simple, fitted. Confident. Like the night before had never happened. "Morning," he said, voice rough with sleep. "Hey. You sleep okay?" I lied. "Yeah." He poured himself coffee, leaned against the opposite counter, and sipped in silence. Watching me. "Still no word from Caleb?" he asked after a beat. I shook my head. "He left me on read." He didn't look surprised. "You said he wasn't supposed to be back until next week," I said. "So, what happened?" He looked down into his mug. "Plans changed. That was it." I waited for more, but none came. "So, you just showed up?" I pressed. He finally looked at me again. "You sound disappointed." "No. I paused. "It would have been good to know." He tilted his head slightly, his mouth twitching into something like a smirk. "You feel like I've interrupted something?" The way he said it, soft but sharp, made my stomach twist. I didn't know if I wanted to argue or admit something. "I don't know," I murmured. "Maybe." He stepped forward, slowly. Deliberately. The air between us shifted, warmer, heavier. He set his mug down beside mine, his hand brushing the counter close to mine but not touching. "I think you do," he said. My breath caught. He was so close I could smell the faint trace of his cologne, woodsy, clean, masculine. My skin buzzed. My heart thudded, loud in my ears. I should have pulled back. I should have laughed it off. I should have walked away. Instead I said, "This isn't a good idea." His gaze didn't waver. "Why?" "Because you're Caleb's dad. And I'm his friend." "Are you?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Just his friend?" That word, just, hung in the air between us, charged, daring. I looked at him, really looked. He was older, sure, but not in a way that diminished him. If anything, it made him more dangerous. He knew himself. He wasn't uncertain, the way boys our age were. He didn't flirt, he tested. He didn't ask, he provoked. And part of me, God help me, wanted that. "I don't know what you're doing," I said, my voice trembling. He leaned in, close enough that I felt his breath against my jaw. "I think you do," he murmured. His hand lifted, hesitating just at my waist. I didn't move. He touched me, lightly, just a thumb grazing the hem of my t-shirt. Not possessive. Not even intimate. Just a question. I swallowed hard. Then, footsteps. Heavy. Approaching from the front door. The sound of keys. A voice. Familiar. Hello? Anyone home? Caleb. Panic shot through me like ice water. I stumbled back from Mr. Cole, nearly knocking over my coffee. He didn't flinch. He simply stepped away, calm as ever, and took another sip from his mug. I stared at him, heart racing. What the hell just happened? Evan? Caleb called again, closer now. I turned, voice cracking. Yeah, I'm here. He walked into the kitchen a moment later, suitcase in hand. Oscar bounded over to him, tail wagging. You okay? Caleb asked, frowning. I nodded too fast. Yeah. Just surprised. Caleb glanced between me and his dad. Didn't think you'd be back so soon, he said carefully. Mr. Cole met his son's eyes. Change of plans? Business got cancelled. Caleb looked at him, then at me. Something flickered in his expression. Uncertainty? Suspicion? He dropped his bag and smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Well, he said slowly, guess it's a party now. He opened the fridge and pulled out a soda. I could feel his gaze lingering on me when my back was turned. Mr. Cole patted Caleb on the shoulder. Good to see you, son. Yeah, Caleb said. His smile vanished the moment his dad walked out of the room. He turned to me, voice low. What happened? I froze. What do you mean? He took a step closer. He's different when you're alone with him. I know that look on your face. I shook my head. Nothing happened, Caleb. Then why can't you look at me? I said nothing. He stared at me for a long moment. Then he whispered, I warned you. And he walked away. I didn't see Caleb for the rest of the day. He retreated upstairs with Oscar, muttering something about being tired from the flight. I offered to make dinner. He didn't answer. Just shut the door to his room with a quiet finality that made my chest ache. I stayed in the kitchen, pretending to chop vegetables I wasn't going to cook, listening to the sounds of the house settle into an unfamiliar quiet again. The silence felt different now, more charged. Not just tension, but something watchful. Like I was under scrutiny, or worse, judgment. And then, he appeared again. Mr. Cole. Freshly showered again. Different clothes. Same steady gaze. He didn't speak at first. Just stepped to the fridge and pulled out a bottle of water, cracking the cap and drinking like he was cooling off from a workout. I busied myself wiping down an already clean counter. I saw the way he looked at you, Mr. Cole said, voice low. I turned. What? He leaned against the sink. Caleb. When he came in. That wasn't just surprise. That was possession. My jaw tightened. He's my friend. His eyes narrowed, just slightly. Is that what you tell yourself? I should have walked away. Should have told him to stop. But I couldn't. Because the worst part, the part one couldn't admit to anyone, was that he wasn't wrong. There was something in the way Caleb looked at me. And something in the way I'd never really pushed back when things between us blurred after a few drinks, after a party, after the quiet nights when we got too close on the couch and neither of us pulled away. I swallowed. You shouldn't talk like that. I'm just being honest, he said. Something neither of you seem capable of. He stepped closer. I flinched, but didn't back away. I didn't do anything, I whispered. You didn't stop anything either. His words hit like a slap. Because he was right. I didn't know what game he was playing, if it was about power, seduction, manipulation, but I was already tangled in it. His voice softened. You think I haven't seen this before? I've been where you are. Confused. Wanting something and hating yourself for it. I stared at him. So what? You want to ruin your son's life to prove a point? A flicker of something passed across his face. Shame? Guilt? Or worse, recognition? He didn't answer. Instead, he reached out. Not to grab me. Not to kiss me. Just a touch. His fingers brushed mine barely there. A ghost of contact. But it was enough to send a jolt through me, not just of desire, but of fear. Because in that moment, I realized something terrifying. I didn't know who I wanted more, Caleb, or him. Footsteps again. Fast. Coming down the stairs. We snapped apart as Caleb rounded the corner, expression dark. He saw us. Saw the distance that wasn't distance. He didn't say a word. Just turned and walked straight past us, out the front door, slamming it behind him so hard the windows rattled. I stood frozen, heart in my throat. Mr. Cole exhaled slowly. He knew. I should go, I whispered. You won't, he said too calmly. Not yet. And he was right. Because the worst part of all of this, the part that truly broke me, was that I didn't want to leave. I wanted to understand. I wanted to know what all of this meant. But maybe some truths aren't meant to be uncovered. Maybe some doors shouldn't be opened. And yet, here I was. Hand on the handle. Waiting to see who would open it first. I didn't see Caleb the next day. His door stayed shut. No movement. No texts. Just silence. Mr. Cole acted like nothing had happened. He read the newspaper on the porch. Watered the plants out back. Walked Oscar. Everything so painfully normal it made my skin crawl. I felt like a ghost in that house, floating from room to room, touching things that no longer felt like mine to touch. The living room, where Caleb and I used to binge horror movies. The kitchen, where I learned how his mom made her lasagna from scratch. The den, where I once fell asleep on his shoulder during a thunderstorm. Everything was familiar. And yet nothing felt the same. By the afternoon, I couldn't take it anymore. I went upstairs and stood outside Caleb's door, hand hovering just inches from the wood. I knocked. No answer. Caleb, I said softly. Please. Just talk to me. Still nothing. I stood there for what felt like minutes. Hours. I don't know. My thoughts raced, about what I'd done, what I hadn't done, what I let happen. And what I wanted to happen. I walked away. Down the hall. Back to the guest room. I'd barely closed the door before I heard his voice behind me. You're not going to fix this by hiding. I turned. Mr. Cole stood in the hallway, arms crossed, leaning against the wall like this was a casual conversation. Like he hadn't nearly blown up his own family 24 hours ago. I'm not hiding, I said. You are. Then what do you call this? I snapped. Whatever this is between you and me, it's twisted. He didn't flinch. I never meant to hurt anyone, I added. Especially not Caleb. But you did. I nodded slowly. Yeah. I know. He stepped forward, expression unreadable. Do you want to stay? The question hit me like a punch. It was too raw. Too open. It wasn't a question about house-sitting or plans. It was about us. About him. About what came next. I opened my mouth to answer. And then the front door creaked. Footsteps. Caleb. He stood at the bottom of the stairs, eyes red-rimmed, jaw clenched. He looked between us, and the devastation in his face said everything. He knew. All of it. He met my eyes and said, voice hoarse, You can both go to hell. Then he turned and walked back out the door. This time, he didn't slam it. He just left it open. And I stood there, paralyzed, watching the breeze move the sheer curtain like a ghost. Because maybe that's what I'd become here. Something broken. Something haunting. Something neither of them would forget. Or forgive. I didn't plan for any of this. It was supposed to be a simple favor. Caleb asked me to house sit while he and his mom were away, some yoga retreat in Costa Rica. Just feed Oscar, water the plants, and don't throw any parties. He joked, handing me the keys with that half-smile that always made me feel like I was part of some inside joke. The house sat on a quiet street, tucked behind sycamores that filtered golden light through the upstairs windows. The air always smelled faintly of jasmine and cut grass. Peaceful. Familiar. Safe. I liked it here. Too much, probably. It felt like slipping into someone else's life for a while, someone more stable, more wanted. The first few days were uneventful. Oscar, the family's grumpy terrier, barked at shadows and refused to eat unless I sat beside him. The kitchen hummed with the sounds of the old fridge and the occasional creak of the wood beams overhead. I worked on my laptop from the sunroom. Took long showers in their ridiculous spa bathroom. Pretended it was all mine. I thought I was alone. Until I wasn't. It was Thursday night when I heard the front door open. Just after midnight. I was on the couch watching something forgettable when I froze, remote slipping from my hand. Oscar didn't bark. That was the first thing that scared me. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate. Keys dropped in a bowl by the door. A voice I hadn't heard in over a year. Evan? My heart stuttered. Mr. Cole. Caleb's dad. I hadn't seen him since they separated. I thought he was in New York, or maybe Austin. Caleb had been vague. Said he wasn't around much anymore. But now he was standing in the entryway, suitcase in one hand, blazer slung over his shoulder, eyes scanning the room until they landed on me. He didn't look surprised. He looked tired. And something else, like recognition. Didn't know anyone was here, he said after a beat. I thought you were gone. I managed. He nodded slowly, closing the door behind him. Things change. The silence that followed wasn't awkward, it was heavy. Weighted. Like we both felt something we weren't ready to name. And then came the second surprise. He smiled. A small, unreadable smile. You've grown up. I didn't know what to say. Because under the porch light, in that stillness, with Oscar asleep at my feet and my heart racing like a warning bell, I suddenly felt like I was somewhere I shouldn't be. Like I'd just stepped into something I didn't understand. Something that was waiting for me. But what? And why did part of me not want to run? It was the quiet that I noticed first. Not the kind of silence that soothes you, but the kind that makes you wonder what's about to go wrong. Caleb's house always had a kind of stillness to it. Wide hallways. Soft rugs. Big windows that let in pale afternoon light, dust motes floating like secrets in the air. His mom decorated it like a catalog ad, neutral tones, eucalyptus branches, and a framed quote above the fireplace that said "Be here now." I didn't belong there. But for a week, I pretended I did. Caleb and his mom had gone to Costa Rica for a mother-son getaway, something about reconnection and surf therapy. He'd asked me to stay and take care of their aging terrier, Oscar. I said yes before I even asked when. I like being here. Like being near his life. My own place was a noisy two-bedroom over a laundromat. No air conditioning. My roommate always brought strangers home. I couldn't even think there, let alone feel. Here? I could breathe. I woke up the third morning to soft rain tapping the skylights. The smell of coffee drifted from the kitchen. I'd started brewing it even though I didn't drink it, just to make the place feel alive. Oscar lay curled at the foot of the couch, twitching in his sleep, paws moving like he was chasing something. I felt okay. I wandered through the house barefoot, letting the wood floor chill my feet, wearing one of Caleb's sweatshirts I'd found in the laundry room. It still smelled faintly like him, cologne and dryer sheets. That mix that made me ache in a way I didn't fully understand. Caleb and I had always had this unspoken thing. Or maybe I imagined it. He'd get too close when we were drunk. Sometimes he'd touch my knee and leave his hand there too long. Sometimes he'd ask me to stay the night when he knew I had a place to be. Once, when we were 17, we shared a bed and neither of us talked about how we'd woken up too close. But nothing ever happened. Not really. So why did I keep thinking about him? Or worse, why did I feel more at home in his house than in my own skin? It was around noon when I heard it. A click. The unmistakable sound of a key turning in the front lock. Oscar didn't bark. That scared me more than the noise. I froze. The door creaked open. A tall figure stepped into the entryway, dropping a duffel bag onto the hardwood. Evan? It took a second to recognize the voice. Deeper than I remembered. Rougher. Mr. Cole. Caleb's dad. He wasn't supposed to be here. No one had mentioned anything. Not Caleb. Not his mom. Not even a passing. Oh, by the way, Dad might swing by. He looked at me, really looked, and didn't seem surprised to see me there in his son's clothes. You've grown up, he said softly, closing the door behind him. And just like that, the quiet didn't feel safe anymore. It felt like a trap. But whose?